Hello, I'm Brian Fox. Welcome to my channel, I Hate Rock Music. And I'm doing a whole series, I think this might be number 5, on San Francisco bands. And everybody's familiar with kind of the big San Francisco bands like Big Brother and Holding Company and Moby Grape, Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane and the like. But there was a whole other scene, Quicksilver, Message Service, another good one. But there was a whole other scene that I've been focusing in on, and that's the heavier side of the San Francisco scene. Bands like Mint Tattoo and Blue Cheer and Shiver, and a lot of these bands are not as well known. And it's pretty great that this psychedelic side of hippie music lived right alongside a bunch of heavy rock bands or heavier rock bands. And so today I'm going to talk about a band called KAK, and they're pretty legendary now. Their one album released in 1968 on Epic is a huge collectible and has been for many years. I'd never seen a copy, and then one day in about 1973, I finally came across one in the racks and got it. And it's a pretty great record. I can see why it's so collectible. But I'll talk a little bit more about what's on the record in a minute. So the band came out of Davis, California, and then moved to San Francisco and were around from 1967 to 1969. And the leader of the band was writer guitar player Gary Lee Yoder. And then we had Denver Patton on second guitar, Joe Dave Damrell on bass, and Chris Lockheed on wait, sorry, Denver Patton was the drummer, and then Joe David Damrell and Chris Lockheed on guitar and bass. And so they had this band from 1967 to 1969. By the time they recorded the album, they had quite a reputation as a live band, and it's a pretty cool record. It's got some elements of psychedelia, but it's got a lot of rural rock elements to it, and then flashes of a much harder sound, and that's one of the reasons why they're so collectible. It's such a interesting band, and the fact they got signed to a major label, the fact that they have some elements in line with Moby Grape and Quicksilver Messenger and the like, and there's some great instrumental work on it. But that little dash of psychedelia makes it that much more special. And then the rural rock, and then the moment, the flashes of heaviness are really cool, and what really sets the record apart for me. And also good writing. There's a couple singles off the album, Everything's Changing and I've Got Time. Both flopped. I've never seen stock copies. I've only seen promos. And so the record got a pretty decent push, of course, being on a major label, but it really went nowhere and was out of print very quickly, which is unusual for records on Columbia and Epic. And then there was one final solo single by Gary Yoder on Epic. And then he joined Blue Cheer, and that's the connection that I'm driving at. Gary Lee Yoder has a very distinctive voice. He's great at rural uh, Americana type rock. Definitely see some Byrds influence on it and whatnot. And so he left KAK and joined Blue Cheer in 1969. And then we ended up with Blue Cheer, their fourth album. He contributes to that. And then number 5, Original Human Being, he's all over. And then Blue Cheer made their rural masterpiece, "Oh Pleasant Hope," which has got Gary Yoder all over it, and his vocals are really great. And so when you listen to the KAK record and you think of Blue Cheer's "Oh Pleasant Hope," which is such a wonderful record, KAK really sounds great because Gary Yoder is just so distinctive, and he's so great at that rural rock. And Dickie Peterson's dream of having a great Americana rural rock band and having Blue Cheer turn into that. He picked the right guy, Gary Lee Yoder, very convincing. So his work on KAK is really great with wonderful dual guitar work and some real nice acoustic tunes and some country flavors. And then he brings that all to Blue Cheer, and it's consummate in the final Blue Cheer album, "Oh Pleasant Hope." So when I listen to KAK and I listen to "Oh Pleasant Hope" by Blue Cheer back to back, it's really a nice slice of Americana rock. And so they apparently only did a handful of shows. So it's even more surprising they got signed by Epic, doing only a handful of shows. But you can see their name pop up on flyers from the day, so they definitely got to play with some of the big bands in San Francisco. And interestingly enough, too, early on, both Gary Lee Yoder and Demner Patton um, were both in the pre-Blue Cheer band Oxford Circle. So interesting that they would play in the band with Dickie Peterson early on in the Oxford Circle, and then quite a few years later, because that would have been about 66, 67. So at the same time, apparently they were in KAK, because KAK was around from 67 to 69. So they ended up being in Oxford Circle, and then they get booted out. Blue Cheer becomes a power trio, and then how about that? A couple of years later, 2, 3 years later, they end up back in playing with Blue Cheer. So Gary Lee Yoder, anyway. And so anyway, the KAK record, good luck finding a vinyl copy of it. There's been a CD reissue called KAKola that has the album and the singles, and then a bunch of rare demos and the Gary Yoder solo single. So everything KAK related. All the demos are really nice. They're acoustic, and Gary Yoder writes good songs and has a really nice voice. So the material is all really great. And like I say about so many bands, it's really unfortunate the KAK only made that one album in 1968, because they had a lot to offer, and if they made another album or two in 69 or 70, they would be a known quantity for sure, with the quality of musicianship and the quality of the writing and the quality of Gary Yoder's singing. They definitely could have made some more great records after that. But we have that one album, like so many, and it's wonderful. So I'll post it below and check it out. If you like the last 2 or 3 Blue Cheer records, or you like Moby Grape and bands like that, first Quicksilver Messenger Service album, you're definitely gonna like KAK, and another great addition to this series I'm doing on really cool obscure bands from the San Francisco area. So much more to that scene. I'm Brian Fox. Thanks for watching I Hate Rock Music.